missing my dad. We apologize so much. I can't stop. He used to tell me all the time. We're not that happy. So he sees my first.
Okay, we'll go.
You guys are live, so you can start whenever you're ready.
All right. I'm trying to think. I don't know that we have any votes anyway, so we probably can get going. Although I didn't. Oh, here comes Crystal. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody.
Hey, Crystal. Okay. And Joe, are you on yet? I see a caller.
Melissa,
Oh, hi, Melissa.
hi. I can't get my laptop to sign on. Shocking. I'm going to try to do that too. So
Okay.
if I pop up visually, there I am.
Great. All right, well then we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to the September 22nd, 2020 meeting, first meeting of the year of the East Bridgewater Finance Committee. We are remote tonight in a continued effort to stay social distance. So this meeting will be recorded and streamed live and rebroadcast. So that being said, we'll go ahead and kick the meeting off at 7:01. And quick run through the agenda for tonight. We have a couple guests with us tonight. We have Peter Spagone, our newest selectman, and John Haynes, DPW director, joining us to go over the first agenda item. And then we have town administrator updates, which we're going to do just real quick high level updates for tonight, just to kind of, what's been going on over the summer type of issues. And then we'll do a deeper dive at the next meeting for anything that we as a committee feel we want to get a little more into. And then because this is our first meeting of the year, our bylaws require that we vote on our committee structure. So we'll do that. And then just real quick, high level, quick conversations on liaisons, the budget timeline, and the annual finance committee meeting, other committee meetings we'll have coming up. So my goal is to have us done by 8 o'clock. So let's see how we can.
A lot of pressure.
I think it's aggressive. Is it aggressive, Kevin? I think we can do it. So.
Wow.
So John, you heard that, right? Okay.
Yeah, throw it on John.
It's all on you and Peter. I think 15 minutes and we should be okay. But, all right, so we're going to go ahead. And I kind of, the subject kind of came up a little last minute, but it falls nicely under the FY21 budget updates. So Brian will have a little bit more information under town administrator updates on kind of where we are with information, lack of information coming on the budget numbers from the state. I'll get into a little bit of that. It's really kind of a no news scenario. But we asked Peter and John to come to the meeting tonight to kind of, I think, share a good news story and proposal that I think the committee will find interesting and I think better for the town. So I'll turn it over to you guys to do your spiel.
Okay, everybody hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay, great. So first of all, thank you, Laura, for inviting me and John to come along tonight to kind of give you the overview of what we've been working on now for 3 or 4 years, maybe even a little longer. Originally, we met with the mayor of Brockton back some years ago about potentially looking at some sewage, participating in their sewage system in Brockton on the 18 corridor from Whitman line down to Highland Street. At the time, they were having trouble. We were talking about going through Whitman to get to Brockton because that's where they go. It wasn't working out because Whitman was still trying to work out some kinks with Brockton on their own system. So we kind of walked away. We put all our energy into finalizing the wastewater treatment plant that houses the high school, central school, fire station, and then we drove across the street with it to pick up CVS and potentially, hopefully, some other facilities over there as we start to dig into it. I'd say 6 months ago, it was raised again by one of the representatives of Weston Sampson, reached out to me, who I've worked with for a long time, and said that Brockton now with a new mayor, Sullivan, was interested to talk once again about bringing sewage to East Bridgewater to help us with that corridor. At the same time, RJ Valentine, who owns F1, Michael Payton bought the property that's adjacent to it, as well as Rob Sorelli, who owns the area down after Peaceful Meadows. He had purchased that from two other owners at the time, and he's got a big landscape of area over there. They've been starting to propose some stuff in that area. As most of you probably know, most things that we see in East Bridgewater are space buildings. Unfortunately, for us, it's not the best landscape. It's easiest for the contractors in town, but for East Bridgewater, what we're hoping for is maybe some mixed use, at least some conversations about trying to develop something in those areas that is a little bit more presentable and will bring in some better income to the town through property tax. But as we all know, in order to do that, the easiest way to get to the first facilitation of that would be sewage. And these septic systems that have to be put in right now are very costly. They're also taking up a lot of room. The soils aren't great in that area. So this would certainly open up the door to more potential. So long story short, we met with the mayor. We told him two things. Actually, he told us two things that he really didn't want us to see us do was go through Whitman, find a way to come through Brockton from East Bridgewater to East Bridgewater. And number two, see if we can stay off of Route 18. John can talk a little bit to the point of where we'd go if we had to deal with Mass DOT. So right now, again, we've spoken to at least three of the owners of businesses on that property, as well as three developers that have the most potential land. And all of them are willing to sit at the table with us and discuss putting some landscape together in that area that I think will accommodate them as owners and as builders, and obviously the town of East Bridgewater, and we have their ears. So it's a good opportunity. What we're asking, and we sat down, I said it with Laura last week and wanted to present it to the finance committee, what we really need in order to push that forward is a feasibility study. We've been given a quote by Weston and Sampson. I'm going to let Mr. Noble speak on where we potentially take that money. The feasibility study, I believe, is about $29,000, but I believe, as well as John and I think Brian as well, is the potential for that investment is overwhelming. And it's going to be something I think that will be a big benefit to the town of East Bridgewater, and we feel very, very confident that we can get through there. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I've been doing, at least for the last 2.5 months since I jumped on board. I mean, I think I talked a lot before getting elected that I wanted to see a lot of development in certain areas, and this is the first step, I think, at least in that quarter, to get something done. But I want to let John, you still there?
Absolutely, right here.
Okay, so I'm going to let John talk a little bit about more of the nuts and bolts of the operation. And then, of course, let Brian talk regarding potentially where we could move those funds from.
Right. So Peter alluded to it and he's done an excellent job recapping what sort of has brought us to this evening. What we're looking at are the different alternatives. And when we talk about a feasibility study, we're talking about how feasible is this opportunity for a wastewater connection with the city of Brockton, not only from a economic investment opportunity, but from an infrastructure perspective too. How are we physically going to get this connection made? What we're identifying is there are three options. Peter alluded to the fact that one, there's a shared interest in avoiding having to utilize a direct connection along Route 18 for operational, intermunicipal reasons, as well as project cost. Anytime you begin to work within the state right of way and Mass DOT's Route 18 is a state highway, it adds a whole several more layers of cost, engineering, permitting, such. So we're looking at what we've identified as two other options, alternative for connections. One being a route that would take the potential connection from Highland Street down to through Elm Street, across Summer and up Thatcher. That obviously presents multiple challenges. It's about 2 miles as a run down the center line of the roadway. The other alternative is a potential cross-country partnership, again, utilizing the opportunities that Peter identified with some of these project developers that we've met with, and then utilizing the Winter Street corridor to connect to Alger Street and Brockton, which then turns into their Route 14. Those are the two options that we'd specifically like to review, analyze at more depth, and that's what part of this feasibility study and the funding that we're requesting would allow for that. We're talking in the vicinity, just for ideas of the scale that we're discussing, the current wastewater treatment plant that I think you're all familiar with, we've discussed on numerous occasions, currently has the capability to treat 30,000 gallons of wastewater. We're discussing possible opportunity for up to 250,000 gallons per day of flow into Brockton's wastewater treatment facility. So it's potentially almost a 10 times greater opportunity, which then really, again, opens the economic growth opportunities for the northern corridor of Route 18 from Highland Street, potentially a little bit farther south up to the Whitman town line.
Great. Before we
Thanks,
talk
John.
about this, does anybody have any quick questions specific to the general initial plan and feasibility study?
Just real quickly, so the idea, and I know you said this at the beginning, but I was trying to take notes at the same time, but so the idea is just that if we added this, that then that area becomes more appealing to businesses. So is there a certain section that's undeveloped there? I think you said it, but I just got lost for a minute.
Yeah, there is. There's a couple of them. And then John, go ahead, John. I'll let you jump in that.
What you primarily see is the areas along Route 18. And again, we talked about right now, we're focused on the area from Highland Street north into to the Whitman town line.
Okay.
What you see is sort of the shallow section, what's immediately developable along the corridor of Route 18. There's an enormous amount of backland that
Okay.
the surge wastewater opportunity then presents itself. If we can
Gotcha.
open that area up.
Great.
So what kind of development do you anticipate being interested in that area? Commercial, residential, what?
Well, primarily the discussions have been with the developers that own that particular pieces of land right now would be some sort of mixed use. So what we see happening right now in this area is people moving from the city coming into the suburbs and want to get out of the high traffic areas and get into these areas. You can see that by the amount of money that homes are being sold at this rate right now. I mean, it's crazy the amount, and this isn't going to obviously go on for a long time, but what we're hoping to do is, kind of catch the area right now and look at potentially having 1-2 bedroom, either condos, apartments. You talk about townhouses. One of the gentlemen, Rob, and I believe John, the last name, Cirbelli. We lost John, but anyways, Cirbelli, yeah. So he already has plans intact for the back half area of Route 18, where right after Peaceful Meadows. Now that could be obviously a much larger scale if you had storage back there. You'd be able to densify those plans and then to build them. So it's really the people that are in that area. The big thing I think for us was that we'd be able to sit at the table with them to really discuss, what we would hope to see and what would work. Again, it's going to have to work for the owners of the property. We're not going to just put something up that town of East Bridgewater asks for, but they can also see the opportunities. As far as commercial use, the front half of that, he's talked about being able to do some commercial stuff there. We're going to have to get into zoning questions as well. Somewhere down the road. It's really right now just identifying what can be done and if it can be done to work with Brockton on bringing that sewage. And the second phase of that, with the type of amount of flow we're looking for is, we could potentially get across the street on Highland Street and talk to Compass as well as to Hard Hanks. Same company owns both buildings. They potentially were originally looking at doing more building in the back half of that. So, the potential is big. It's just really right now we're just asking to see, if we can get from Brockton to East Bridgewater, what those costs will be. You got other businesses there, Bobby D Motors. You've got Mockingbird. So you got 3 or 4 other businesses that we'll have to sit down with them as well. They'll have to have a shared part of this and really see what their future holds as well. I mean, obviously it makes their land that much more valuable with this type of service. So we're going to address all those questions and those answers will be presented once we figure out where we can go.
I think what Peter is what we've recognized from speaking with these developers is an opportunity for them, which then in turn is for the town, is to recognize what's the highest and best use for these properties, and what would serve the town of East Bridgewater to the greatest extent, at the same time being a venture that the developers want to partner with East Bridgewater on. And it's really going to be, I think at the end of this, it'll in order for this to be successful, it has to be a partnership, with the town of East Bridgewater.
That partnership would, I'm going to assume, would have to require a certain amount of commercial development, so as it's not all residential, to fill schools and tap on other resources here. I mean, is that the thought? There'd be a lot more some commercial development along with this.
Some mixed use, so you would get some residential, but we have capacity in the school system for at least another 500 kids. Now, you have to think about, you've got pre-K through 12. So when you throw 500 kids, they're divided over 13 grades. So, they're not all going to come in as freshmen in high school. So at the moment, we have some capacity in the schools that we can fill, and that actually doesn't increase our fixed costs.
David, I would agree. I think, obviously with the intent of mixed use is that the usage would support each other. So you would have, light commercial development that would support mixed use housing as a sense, is kind of the concepts that these developers are presenting to us. The commercial would be what would attract in the clientele to living in these, townhouse style condominium, multi-residential units.
Yeah, and I agree that, if we're able to tap into up near Compass, like Peter said, because there's always been talk of developing that a lot further, I think that'd be a big plus. I would just caution that there'd be a nice balance between commercial and residential.
I agree.
I think
All right,
that's-
Brian, you want to talk a little bit about funding the feasibility study?
Sure, we're only 3 months into the year, so it's a little early, in my opinion, to be doing a reserve fund transfer for this expense. There are several ways we can do this. John does have lines in the budget that he can charge this to, but quite honestly, if he's running the organization I think he is, he will definitely run aground before the end of the year, because obviously we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. We could do several things. We could put an article on the special town meeting to refund that money to his budget line or reappropriate to those budget lines. We could put an article in the annual town meeting to do the same thing, because after all, it's towards the end of the year by that point where we'd have to reconcile. Or we could do a May-June interfund transfer between another department that with a surplus over to his department with the deficit. And then lastly, we could do, if we ran out of all options, I could do a FinCom reserve transfer Remember that the FinCom reserve right now is 225,000. This bill would be 29.9. So for easy math, call it 30 grand. So what we would probably recommend doing is putting an asterisk on some of your funds in your notes that it was presented to you as a potential transfer from finance. But I would say at this moment, to let John charge it against his current budget and just know full well that we may not be able to manage the budget well enough to cover for that 30 grand. And that at some point, we're going to have to do something to replace it.
What is the anticipated time frame of having a feasibility study done?
I think they said they could do the feasibility study within 2 months of our authorizing it.
6 to 8 weeks exactly was what they told us. Yeah.
And we're ready to execute as soon as we can.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They'll start with, I mean, once we get an agreement signed, then obviously, they worked, Weston Sampson worked with us for years on other projects. They just worked on the one a couple years ago over the wastewater treatment. So they're just looking for a signature and they're ready to go. They can start up probably next week.
Does this fall under, what's it, 30B, like it is exempt from multiple bids, or did we get
It's
multiple
exempt.
bids?
It's 30B exempt for engineering.
Okay.
But that's a good question, Melanie. I appreciate you.
No problem. Do my due diligence.
Yes.
That's why we like having you on the committee.
So I would say, to be honest with you, we keep a ledger on the transfers from reserve. So we would write a note that, this presentation occurred. We are reserving the 29.9. But if I can find it somewhere else or we can move it in other ways, we will do that.
Yeah, and we could see where we land in a couple of months. We'd have the report. I mean, I don't think we want to put this kind of stuff on a back burner if we have an opportunity, and just, sit tight and see how things go and take action later on. Who knows? It might not snow this year, right, Joe? We could use your snow money.
That's right, because John's promised a very light winter.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a wise approach.
I think this is $30,000 well spent that I think will, fingers crossed, will hopefully yield some tremendous returns down the road too. I think there's other possibilities that could come from this. So.
We hope so.
So Brian, given that we're not really taking any action on doing a transfer or anything, I don't believe that this would need a vote of the FinCom.
The only suggestion I would do is do a vote of support for the feasibility study.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any more questions before we do that for them? No? Okay, then I would entertain a motion that this FinCom support moving forward with the feasibility study priced at $29,900.
I make a
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Crystal, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I heard Melanie's voice first. Okay, any further discussion? Great. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that unanimous. Perfect. Motion passes. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, exciting.
Thank you, guys.
Very exciting. Okay,
Thank you
get the
very
paperwork
much.
today, tomorrow.
Yeah, start moving on. We'll get back to you as soon as we hear something.
Great.
And
Excellent.
before we lose Peter, by the way, you've got a rec commission update on my updates.
Yeah.
Peter's been instrumental in this with me. In
Yeah,
fact,
Peter, are you gonna
it's
hang on
Peter.
for a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure.
Can you? Okay.
You
John,
wanna-
we'll cut you loose if you want. If you feel like hanging around, feel free.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
All right, John. Bye. You didn't even hesitate.
You don't want me there. I'll belabor the conversation. Drag it right out.
That's true. I do have a deadline. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night. Great. Well, then moving into town, well, we can actually move this around a little too, if Peter, I don't know if you want to stay for the whole meeting, but why don't we just go ahead and do the rec commission update next then? And that way, you can be done if you want.
Thank you. So
Brian, you
Brian,
wanna
you,
start
Brian,
Yeah,
you
why
wanna
don't you go ahead and do the rec commission update?
Okay, so we met with the rec department, met with so many people, I can't remember when the hell it was, but I want to say it's probably, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess, Brian?
Yes.
They had their meeting. The discussion with them was, we really wanted to see them start to take a real strong approach at getting a hold of the town's facilities, fields, common area, whatever it may be. And, we told them that we would support them in any way we possibly could. Brian took it one step further and, basically let them know that, for insurance reasons as well as financial reasons, we really have to understand who's using those facilities, what organizations, what they're doing, what their time is, what kind of coverages they have. So it was an easy transformation from just telling them to do something and actually showing them why we had to do something in order to get a hold of it. So after some hand holding, I'm going to say that, Brian, because you really kind of walked them through that. He got together with Teresa McNulty and PJ Furia and was able to work with them to get out a letter from the town, as well as a questionnaire to tell these organizations, and most of them were all the sports organizations, from baseball, basketball, soccer, all the way through. And basically what we said to them is, look, tell us where you're using, what you're using, how, what kind of coverage you have, what's the procedures, gather this information. They did put a date on it for, I believe, the end of the month, and said, get us as much as we can. It's not an investigation. It's not, we're not picking on any one organization. What we're trying to do is just get a full understanding. The rec's trying to get a full understanding of what's going on in those facilities. Once they get that, then they can really figure out what the potential is for the rec department and what their role should be with some of these organizations. We all know, soccer's been doing a tremendous job over at Belmont Street. Baseball's doing a tremendous job in really running those facilities at Church Street. For us now, it's just to take a bigger step, a bigger advance to finding out what we can do, and if we can do more, we can create more. Because if we can stop bringing in some revenues, obviously we give back something to the town, which is very beneficial. But more importantly, we've got a ton of area, Leland Farms, just areas that I believe have potential for development, and we can see further programs be developed and further sports programs flourish, really, and not just sports. I mean, rec departments got to be involved in numerous things, the arts, whatnot. We've also spoke to the Arts Council and kind of got their push going as well. But for us, one of the other big things outside of development for me was to see the rec department get moving, get the support, create some income, and then eventually look to have somebody that kind of runs that show. We've been doing everything we have to do, and I think finally they feel very happy that they have the opportunity now and the backing from the selectman's office to go out and say, look, let's find out what's going on, let's move forward, and let's figure out what we can do to make it a real department. Right now what they've been doing is just collecting money from Strong's Field and kind of just, I don't know. I wish I knew what they were doing, but because they just didn't have anything really solid right now. But they'll get it together. They'll get all this information back, and then I think as a group they'll be able to really put something together that will be a real benefit to the town. And that's kind of where I'll let Brian talk a little bit about his intake from that meeting, and as well as what his conversations with Teresa and PJ have been as well.
Well, thank you. With Peter's assistance, we've been able to talk to the rec commission without threatening the leagues that have supported the town fields all these years and not give them culture shock. But as you know, when we switched insurance carriers, the first thing that they landed on was, what are you doing on these fields, and who's in charge, and what insurance do they cover, and what are you requiring? So I was able to show the rec commission exactly what my concerns were and what I needed to produce for the insurance company, which in turn generated the questionnaire to the leagues. But the most important thing that, and by involving Peter, particularly a trusted trusted arbiter with them. We're not interested in, turning the world upside down in a heartbeat. We're not interested in giving them culture shock, and we're not interested in annoying those people who've done so much for the town in developing some of those fields. However, they are town assets, and the town bylaws apply, and so do town procurement laws from the Commonwealth, the Inspector General's office. And one of the things that we found is that there have been significant investments in the field, including the building of, concession stands and a drilling of a well, but they have to comply with the procurement 30B, even if, they're being donated, because you still have to pay prevailing wage and all that kind of stuff. So we made them understand what our concerns and problems were. And that really has engendered a level of cooperation, which I think the town could be proud of. We're not interested in threatening anybody. We're not interested in taking anybody's field away, but we are trying to make best use of our assets and to do an inventory of where we may need to expand fields or spend a little more money in maintaining the fields we do have, and making sure the Rec Commission is expanding, because one of the things we look at is our competitive nature as a town. When we get rated, one of the downsides is other towns have much more active Rec Commissions doing more, and we would like to have that. And I think that we've got buy-in on that. Wouldn't you agree, Peter?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I've heard from a couple of the organizations as well already that had received the information, and, they've said the same thing. Look, we want to work with the town as much as they want to work with us. They've got a role in here, but they've also got concerns. They've got concerns about some of the property and, what they can do to fix it and what they can do to, see it grow. And I said, well, as soon as we get the information that you'll be able to provide for us, then we can really assess where that growth needs to come from and some of the other things that can come about. So everybody's on board. I think they understand the vision. And to Brian's point, rec departments in a lot of these communities, he always talks about us being put up against, like say Easton, for instance. And, when you look at some of these places, some of these other towns, they've got a rec department director and they've got these programs, summer programs. We've got good programs. We just need to bring them into one home. And, we've spoken to the schools. They've been very supportive. The Little Vikings program is something that we feel strongly should be run through rec department. Lisa Barrasso, who I've been in many conversations with, said she'd be more than happy to see it come through the rec, and you get more participation. You get obviously you get more people that would come out and help out and work with it. So and I don't want to just continue talking about sports. That's why I said like a program like the Little Vikings does numerous things. They do crafting and arts and Legos and all kinds of stuff, and we just needed to take that and expand from it. So I think it's going to take a while. I mean, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think you'll see over the course of the next year that they'll have a stronger hold on everything, and then start to present stuff to you guys instead of I don't know what it is now, like $2,400 or something a year. They have some small budget. They're going to come, and you're just going to be ready. But at least when they come to you and say, we need this, this, and this, they're going to have a plan. And I think Laura's been a big advocate of that. Well, hey, look, we're willing to help you, but you got to help yourself before we can do anything. We can't just give you money without having some sort of plan going forward. So that's what they're doing. And, Brian's directing them in that, and he's doing a lot. Teresa McNulty's been on there for years and has a lot of knowledge about the town, has a lot of knowledge about some of the facilities that, and I saw her, extremely excited about, this new venture and being able to start to move forward. So you'll hear from him for sure. And at least this time when you hear from him, I think you'll hear from him with some ideas and some landscape of what they want to do. And that's really what they have to do in order to get the funding.
Well, it's exciting. Two things, we were just talking about the proposed project, bringing sewage down 18 and the potential for development there. And when I talked with Peter and John, they talked a lot about not only what will attract those folks that are trying to move to East Bridgewater, but what's going to keep them here. And again, if we don't have a supermarket and we don't have all of the things we constantly talk about that we don't have, we've got a good school system. Now, this enhances it. And then I also mentioned, and I don't know if Peter remembers, I don't know if he participated, but when we were kids, East Bridgewater had a very, very active and thriving rec department and a very, very active summer program. I went to it, and it was, you know, a 6 to 8 week all day summer program that, you know, tons of kids went to. And we've got to get back to kind of some of those, the core, and make it attractive for the folks. So I'm excited. I think it's, you know, again, I know it's a lot of work for them, and I think that's the struggle. Again, we can appreciate it being a volunteer board. So I think we've got to be able to be willing to kind of, you know, extend the hand out to help them too, whenever they need the help, which I think we're all willing to do.
Absolutely.
So, good, great. Thank you very much.
I have a question on that, Joe Conley. So have we explored like maybe selling the Little League field to the Little League guys, or the soccer field to the soccer guys, and using that for funding? Because like no one uses the Little League field but the Little League people, right? So why not let them have it and just take the money?
The direct answer to the question is we're not quite sure who's using what field for how long. So that's the first question. The second answer to your question is, generally speaking, you don't sell town assets like athletic fields because they're hard to replace. And especially as the development continues in town and land becomes more precious, it could be difficult to ever replace that capacity. And I would tell you,
Well,
based
no, I would
on
disagree with that, because you could have the Little League, you could write a covenant into the sale saying the Little League field stays a Little League field forever.
oh no, you can restrict it, but the fact is,
Exactly.
if you sell it to the Little League, it's forever the Little League.
That's right.
And-
And that's what it has been since it was started, right?
Yeah, but it can't be, but it's still a town asset, and it should theoretically be used to the fullest for the town, not just for the Little League.
Why?
So
be-
I guess,
because
Joe,
it's
to the point of,
taxpayer
you know, the
dollars.
town, you know, 25 years from now, will just make up something, and Little League isn't a big deal anymore. You know, the town may need the land for X, Y, and Z, and we want the ability to, you know, to retain that and have the
Yeah.
option.
I don't see, you
First
think
of
Little
all,
League
I
is
would
gonna
tell
go
you-
away?
Yeah, Joe, I would tell you that, I mean, the problem is, we've been in business since 1823. Tell me where we're gonna be in 200 years.
I can tell you the Little League will probably be around,
Okay.
especially if you have
Yeah,
fields to play on, right?
I would tell you that we probably need more fields, not less.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, you know, there could be a ton of different ideas and proposals that come along. We're at the stage right now, the very beginning, just finding out what's going on right now. And to Brian's point, you know, we don't know who's using the field. And I mean, you know, Bridgewater Little League, they have tournaments down there. They've had them for years. I was coached down there. I know other towns came in. We just want to know what's going on first and what the liability for the town of East Bridgewater is. That's our main concern right out of the gate. But once we, you know, get an idea of who, what, where, and when, then yeah, we can open up and look at any and every proposal that they want or any group wants to put in front of us. That's not a problem.
And also, if, you know, once things get sorted out, you know, the rec commission, as Brian and Peter have stated in other cities, actually brings a profit in. If we were to sell that, I mean, there's an element here of we would like to, you know, I don't want to say make money, but we'd like to have an additional revenue stream come out of this. And this is an opportunity for that. So I think keeping it in-house is good. Okay, so moving along, because we're at jeopardy of missing my timeline. Okay, thank you. Peter, any other quick questions on that? No? Excellent, thank you. You, again, free to stay. At some point, we're gonna make you start coming regularly, but you know.
I will, absolutely. I think take the time, and like I said, we'll, you know, as often as I can get in here, I will certainly let you guys know. You know, Brian, we speak quite a bit, so, you know, he can keep you updated as well, but I appreciate the time, and I appreciate what you guys do as well, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
All right, thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian,
Okay.
we can keep these updates fairly high level and quick, and we'll kind of blow through them and then decide what we need to do a deeper dive on.
Sure. CARES Act, with Rebecca's assistance, we have of the 1.8 something million dollars that we had available to us. So far, we've put in requests totaling over $550,000. And that's been distributed between the schools, the DPW, the fire, town hall, library, police, COA, and the veterans. And so we're still going strong on that, meaning that I've got a balance still remaining of $788,000. Now, in fairness, I haven't got all the bills yet from the school, but time is running out. There's two things we have to do. These have to be, anything that we're buying under CARES Act has to be paid for by December 30th. So we are moving right along. Right now, we're waiting for 4 checks, Rebecca, from Plymouth County. They've approved, they've cut, they've written, but they want to deliver in person. My attitude is I'll come over, pick them up and take it back.
We're waiting for 5 checks.
Just to give you, since the CARES Act, it includes the ambulance purchase. After reviewing the law and realizing how much aggravation the purchase of the ambulance would be under the CARES Act, we have determined that we can't go forward with it because it requires us to expand our fleet by 1 more ambulance, and we don't need to do that. So it has been Tim's decision to cease the dream of buying it under the CARES Act money. So we did our due diligence, we did our homework, and it just doesn't work. I really wish it did, because boy, I'll tell you, that would have been a nice give back, but can't do it. The free cash review, we filed midweek our request to certify $3.4 million in free cash. Now, remember, a lot of that money is carried over from the fact that we didn't spend a lot of money at town meeting. So it's not all available for spending. And we're waiting for the certification to come back so that we can do that. And I will go into it later when we get into what articles we passed over at town meeting, what we may be doing with this. With the fall town meeting, oh, that's next on the list. So from the free cash review, let's jump to the fall town meeting. If you take out your warrants, you'll see the things that we didn't push forward were the central school sewer connection, police cruisers, the auditorium lighting at the Mitchell School, the junior senior high school lecture hall video processor, the video surveillance project, some water infrastructure improvements. We didn't reserve the money for health insurance mitigation. We didn't purchase the financial display software. We didn't give John any additional money in road repairs. We didn't do the marijuana articles. We'll get back to that in a minute. We didn't appropriate any money for the electrical improvements. We didn't sell Gladys Farron Cottage. We didn't eliminate the constables. We didn't remove the police department from civil service. And we didn't do any transfer to stabilization. So I have made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, which I will repeat with you, but they have not voted on this or discussed it. So what I'm giving you is only what Brian suggested to the board, and the board does make the final decision. We desperately need the police cruisers. I need 2, and we probably should not have skipped over these at town meeting. I've got a 3rd cruiser that can't seem to, shift gears. So that's bad. Right now we're using it as the SRO vehicle. And I've got 2 of the vehicles with very high mileage and very high hours that we are spending too much money on maintenance. So we're definitely going to do 2 cruisers now. And I want to warn the finance committee that I probably will be back for 2 more cruisers in the annual town meeting. So please be aware, and we'll let Paul come in and explain the replacement cycle. But part of the problem is when you have as many vehicles as we do, and we use them like we do and constantly, that years that they skipped the replacement of cruisers because they were concerned about money, it's costing me money now. Our chickens have come home to roost, and our maintenance costs are climbing beyond what they should. We need to ditch a couple of these really old cruisers. So that's going to go forward at town meeting. I think we'll take care of very quickly the small things that the school asked us to last time, the auditorium lighting, the high school lecture hall video processor. Those were small money, as you recall. The video surveillance project, we would like to go forward with that as well, because that's a security and loss prevention article. And I had Ryan update the price quotes. It's also an expandable system. So when I can go forward, I will be adding cameras around the high school and adding cameras around town hall, cameras to the Council on Aging, cameras to the library, and they'll all be able to go onto the server. I see you, Joe. Go ahead.
I'm just curious on that. I'm not too much into surveillance. So what's the problem that's gonna address? Is there rampant, crime and security problems down at the high school and the places you just mentioned?
Yes, well, right at the moment,
There is? Because the police
we're in a
department's right
public-
there.
we're in a public meeting, so I'm not going to discuss the security in a public meeting, but I will talk to you privately about that. But suffice it to say that vandalism and trespassing are an issue.
Can you provide the number of incidents last month?
I will, but not in a public forum.
It's
And
it's not
that's what
public, the number of incidents? I don't understand.
I'd rather not
Alright.
go into it.
Yeah.
Can we
So you
postpone
can
for a
connect
private
with Brian
conversation?
on that. Joe, we
I
went.
mean,
we
but
went
that is
through a lot
public
of it.
information, isn't it? Like how many incidents were at the high school last
Crime-
month, isn't it?
Crime statistics are public.
Okay, so do you have those for the high school?
I will not talk about those in public, Joe.
But they are public
So it-
information, correct?
So
Yes.
Joe, if you need
Yes.
to take it offline and try to get that information, so we can move through, because we discussed, these aren't new articles. These are articles from last year that we passed over. So
Yes.
we can go back and revisit those and whether it comes up again. But for the sake of our timing, I think we need to kind of move forward. So
Okay.
Brian, what are your next steps with setting a date for town meeting and then kind of making a decision? Are you going, on which articles to move forward with, and are there still some we're gonna hold on?
Yes, there's still some articles I'm going to hold on because I just don't see the need to, because of the shortened time span. I don't think that we can do as much of the electrical improvements I want to do. So it can wait for a further, you'll do a small appropriation and then go back at the annual town meeting and do the rest of the appropriation. Because it's a matter of I can't spend the money between now and then anyway, so why appropriate it? Let's see how far we get, and then we'll decide what we'll need to appropriate. Plus, we're trying to do a Green Communities grant, which I would like to be able to use that money to do the electrical improvements instead of the money we had allocated for it originally. So that would be great if I could just replace that money with grant money. So
Agreed.
that's where I am. Let me just make sure I haven't missed anything. I think.
So we
I
held
told you
off a lot because we didn't know what was gonna happen with the state.
Correct.
Do we know the final number from the state?
So this is what the state has told me. They told me that we would get the same aid as we got in FY20, that they were going to level fund it. 2 weeks later, they came back and said, well, we're going to level fund it in everything, but we're going to give you more Chapter 70 money, the education money, and more Chapter 90 money than we originally said. So the only thing that seems to be level and therefore not meeting my original projection is the unrestricted local aid, which is our smallest amount of local aid. In addition, they cut our charges by $40,000, and the regional school district, the vocational school, cut their assessment by $44,000. So anything I'm losing in local aid, I'm saving in the cuts to charges. So at the moment, even though this is not the way I would normally like to do it, it's coming out about the same. So I'm going to certify my revenue numbers at what we projected and certify my projected charges at what we know the charges will be. And therefore we will come out to maybe a little shy, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But the only concern I have is not what they did to me in the FY21, but what they will do to me in FY22 when we start looking at what the aid numbers will be come December for the following fiscal year.
I just have a question about, so the CARES money, and I'm not as familiar with it on the municipal side. A lot of the colleges that I work with, they got CARES money.
Yeah.
For the towns, what's the stipulations on using it for payroll? As far as anything that's continued remote work from the teachers or anything? Is there any way that
I can't
that
use
fits
it
in?
for people who were employed with us pre-COVID,
Okay,
but I can use it for people we hired to fight COVID. So there are additional janitors, custodians hired at the
Mhm.
school system. I can claim under CARES Act. I
good.
can
And all
claim
their benefits and
unemployment.
everything too.
Yes.
Good.
Some of the school employees were able to collect unemployment. I can charge all of that against the CARES Act. They've hired they've done some additional cleaning, and they've obviously bought cleaning supplies. We could charge all that against the CARES Act. Just to give you an idea, we've purchased over 800 computers under the CARES Act. 400 for the schools, the school teachers, and then additional Chromebooks. And then on the town hall side, we have purchased laptops and docking stations for every single employee in town hall. So
That's
if we should go through shutdown again, everybody can take their computer home and we can connect on a VPN. So that would make, Dan happy that we're protecting our network, and they can continue to work from home should occasion require.
Awesome.
And so it's great. The only thing that's the downside of that is if I replace all the computers at one time,
To
all
replace them all
gonna
again.
break at the
They're all gonna
same
break.
time.
Yeah.
So, but some of our computers that we're replacing were more than 10 years old.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna have a few computers that we're gonna be able to repurpose for the counter computers. And for the veterans computers, the veterans are gonna go all online next year. And a lot of our veterans are older and are not gonna be able to do this from home on their own. So we're gonna install 2 computer service stations from our extra inventory, or our what do we call our pulled inventory, if you will.
Yeah.
We're gonna put those on the table out in front of the, underneath the World War II memorial. So we're using it. Plus, as you know, we spend money on personal protective equipment.
Right.
We have spent money on the glass in front of all the windows.
And probably all like network upgrades and stuff that must
Yeah.
fall into it
Yeah.
for.
We did server upgrades so we
Yeah.
could support the work from home if and when.
Mhm.
And some of our employees have worked from home. And I must admit that we've upgraded the servers or the infrastructure at the school for technology. So my question to all of you is, does that mean never a snow day again?
What it means for me at work.
Yeah.
Teachers union
So-
calls that, don't they?
Yeah.
No, I'm
It's
home
good.
with my kids. I'm home with my
You
kids,
need a
so
snow day.
we need it. We need snow days.
So that's what I got for you. Happy to,
I guess my only other question, and I know I owe an email, so I'm gonna send that tonight, is do you have a sense of timing of when you would like to see, or when do you think the selectmen would like to see fall town meeting?
I'm thinking we're gonna be looking at a town meeting in November. I was thinking the Friday after Thanksgiving. I don't know how you feel about that. So I would assume probably the full week before Thanksgiving would be a good time. But that is a decision to be made by the Board of Selectmen, not Brian Noble, so.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, perfect.
that's
Well,
clear.
it's just important for us to kind of keep in mind, with, as we're getting ready to start the next season, making sure that we have, if there's any work we need to do, assuming there's not
Well-
going to be a tremendous amount, but we'll need
I need to do a town meeting now. I need 16 days notice to publicize. It's 14 days plus the date of the meeting, plus the date of the posting. So I need 16 days to announce a town meeting. If I want to have attendance, I would think we need to do it a little bit further ahead than that.
Yeah.
But as you know, we don't have a quorum anymore. So if 3 of us show up, that's going to be good enough. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay.
Excellent,
But
okay.
we're ready to go, and I think the issues relative to the green communities, which requires us to adopt the stretch code, is a big deal. The police cruisers is definite necessity. I goofed. We probably should have done that in the annual town meeting.
So just
but-
quick question on that. Can you just lease some cruises on OpEx for a couple months or something?
I can, but the leasing deals aren't what they used to be.
Well,
So,
interest rates are 0 now, right? So
right, I mean, right at the
not for
moment. I'm
leasing, but they're
using
low.
Cars. So,
I hate
I
to see
think
the
by the
guys
time-
using, hate to see them using the cars that aren't in good shape, right?
it's
Well-
not pretty.
Before they were, I know that when Gene Bennett was still there, they were purchasing items on the auction. They were going to auctions to purchase vehicles to save some money, some line
Yeah.
item money.
And then,
Is
and
that
some
what
of the,
now?
some of the cars we bought came out of the flood in Louisiana. And guess what happened to those? They rotted out in a heartbeat. Now, we got a good deal, but they didn't last that long.
Yeah. No,
And
these
even
guys
with the
are good stuff.
DPW mechanic, that's, we're still losing. Like even with having the mechanic on the DPW payroll, we're still not able to fix those vehicles and save money on that end.
All of those vehicles, I believe, and I could be wrong, so I'll defer to Paul, but I believe all of those vehicles that were bought at the auction at that time are now gone.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, this is their office. They need to have good, reliable
Yeah.
vehicles. There's
Yeah.
no
Can we-
ways around that.
Like we talked about earlier, I know we said it's earlier in the year to, spend from the finance reserve fund, but could we spend to buy 1 or 2 and then reimburse the reserve fund through an article, a special town meeting, so they get them earlier?
If we can put it onto the warrant, and I have the selectmen support, we will be fine getting the cruisers in time. But if we don't do a fall town meeting, then I'm gonna have to do something creative.
Yeah, let's get it done. That's important. I mean,
Yep. Yep. Unfortunately, this isn't like a normal, we don't run the town like a business. I always get that. We should run the town like a business. Yes, I'd like to. Which case we would have bought the cruisers on Brian's say so, but it doesn't work like that.
right.
So, but I also need to prepare you for the fact that it's 2 cruisers now and 2 cruisers in May. And when Paul comes in to do his presentation, he has the computers, the statistics on every cruiser, the mileage, the idle time, how that translates, the repair costs. He's done his homework, and it's a good presentation. So you will be pleased, and it will make it easier for you to justify your vote.
So if he did use the leasing though, would that then have to go to a vote and all that stuff? Because it's not
Technically,
capital, it's an operations expense, just like
it's an operational
all the
expense.
other stuff they do.
If he has a line item he can take it from, he could lease it without your permission. That would
So
be
that-
probably suicidal with the capital budget committee.
Why? I mean,
They don't
Didn't
like
we
it.
have with DPW just doing that though? We had,
Yes, the
There was a
DPW,
big to-do around that too, and it has been over several years. There's been several issues around the way they've been doing it.
so.
lease
and,
versus buy.
let's not do that.
Okay.
And the
All right.
last
Shut up
item I
again.
can tell you, I'm sorry, the last item I can tell you is the meals tax goes into effect on October 1st.
Yay.
All right.
I don't know, it's a bad year to figure out how much we're gonna get on that one.
Yeah, no.
but-
Very bad.
I
The
still
state
you
is-
take it.
State has been very cooperative, and they did all the notification and talking to the restaurants. So it's great, and they streamlined the programming, so all they have to do is, they used to have to do 2 lines for taxes, the local tax and the state tax. And the state changed the rule, so they just changed the tax from 6.25 to 7% automatically.
saw that, yeah.
The state will do the divide for us. So
Okay.
we will be getting a check on a quarterly basis. So as soon as I get the first check in, January, I'll let you know how much it was.
Well, we'll have to have a special little ceremony and we'll have to bring Michelle in and do pictures when we get the first check.
Those are my updates, and now I can,
Excellent.
how we doing for time? Oh, sorry.
We're
Maureen, you're
not
all
gonna
done.
make it. Yeah, you pull it. It's all you. All right, well, we can blow through these next items hopefully fairly quick. All right, being that this is our first meeting of this fiscal year, our bylaws require us to restructure or address the committee structure. So we do need to do that tonight. We can make it as easy as we want or as complicated as we want, I guess. So obviously, if there's anybody interested And in holding one of the three positions, chair, vice chair, or clerk, this would now be the time to bring it up, or if you want to nominate somebody, we'll get to that. We do currently have myself serving as chair, Dan serving as vice chair, and Melanie serving as clerk. You know, I've had some conversation with everybody, and everybody who's in current positions is interested in continuing on in those positions for this year. But I can either kind of move forward one position at a time, or I can kind of open it up as a group. I don't think there's any law that says I have to do it one by one. But
I nominate all the incumbents.
Second.
that was awfully damn quick. How am I not surprised? Any?
Yeah, it's working good. Why screw it up?
Okay, so Dave, motion to, I guess we'll say elect or re-elect. Do we have to elect, or can we just say continue on? Brian, does it matter? Okay,
You can
we'll say
continue.
re-elect.
Yep.
We'll
If
say
you do
re-elect.
one motion, then that's it.
Okay. Existing positions. Okay, any additional discussion? Who seconded that? Was that Kevin?
That was
Kevin?
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 I guess so.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Nope, all right, motion passes. Excellent.
To double the chairwoman's salary for the next year.
Yes, please.
Well, I think you voted that at 225,000, so.
Oh,
Nice. Plus benefits.
225,000 pennies. All right, the next two items we don't really have to get into, but again, we haven't had any movement on the committee this year, which is nice. We've got a little consistency going, where we're staying consistent with our positions. Liaisons would be the next item that we would typically talk about. We don't have to make any final decisions tonight. I'll just broach the subject of if everybody wants to kind of take a look at it, and then in the next meeting, if anybody wants to make any changes to their liaison departments, let me know, and then we can kind of reshuffle the deck. If everybody's happy with the liaisons they have, we can leave it alone there too. So I'll kind of just open that up, and then if anybody just wants to connect with me between now and the next meeting, we can address it. All right, everyone's good there. And then budget timeline, again, I'd like to say we're going to have hopefully a normal year this year, but I think we're already going to be a little wonky doing the fall town meeting. I think our and again, let's give it some thought, and then let's have a more robust discussion at our next meeting. My thought is to kind of pretend like the fall issues are kind of separate, and then just obviously plow forward with kind of our aggressive or semi-aggressive timeline that we worked on last year. So I think we'll probably start working on that to get a sense of, you know, how we want to move forward. You know, we don't have a tremendous amount that usually we start up until like December. And then we kind of we go full force right after the new year. So I guess we'll just continue working on that timeline in that vein, unless anybody has any thoughts we can
We'll
talk
probably
about.
put out the budget request letter around Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, okay.
Yeah.
That's about, I think, when we normally would. All right, and
Yeah.
then last item, excuse me, there's two more items. I sent out the email about the annual finance committee. What the heck's the name of the group? I can't think of it. The ATFC, annual
Town Finance Committee.
Finance Committee meeting. I guess it's just that simple. I keep thinking it was going to be more complicated. Several of us went to their annual meeting last year. This year, the meeting is obviously virtual, and it's broken down over 3 different nights. And so I just wanted anybody who would like to attend the meetings to let myself and or Rebecca know, and Rebecca will register you. So far we have me. Melanie, were you definite?
What was the dates again? I meant to go back and look. Do you have them there? I can find the email if not.
No, I have it right up. The dates are October 22nd, 29th, and November 12th. And they run 7 to 8:15.
No, I can do that. I'd like to sign up for that.
I
Okay.
wanted to, but now, yeah, I think is soccer over by then? Or at least it doesn't go
Oh,
till
'cause there's
7, right?
Thursday.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't know if it
soccer
doesn't go to
now.
7.
Yeah, well, it went to 7 last week, but it wasn't that, or no, it was like 6:15. Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
I think they move it up 15 minutes, Melanie.
I was gonna
Once
say,
the
It
times
gets
get
dark.
darker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else interested? No? Okay. And if you change your mind,
Put me in too, okay?
you and Kevin? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. All right. So Rebecca,
I'm
did you
just,
get that?
Laura, I'm just checking my schedule. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Rebecca, I'll send you a final email just to confirm, okay? Okay.
And Dan, I might not, if you can't do it, Dan, I might not be able to do the last one, so maybe you could sign on as me for that last one or something if you can't do any of the first 2.
Okay.
And if, and the registration's $25, so if you can make 2 out of the 3, it's
It's not
still a
bad.
value. It's still a value. I thought it was super interesting last year. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
It was.
Yeah, the topics for this year looked good too.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of
please
these
do.
webinars too, they've been emailing the webinars after. So if you do miss one, they've
Oh,
been
good.
emailing them too. Yeah.
Good. Good. Okay, perfect. And then the last item that we have are the minutes that I sent out. Hopefully everybody got a chance. It was good because they're nice and brief minutes from our joint
Move
meeting
to
with the
approve
select.
as printed.
Okay.
Kevin?
Excellent. Yep. And do we have a second?
Second?
Second.
Second.
Bristol, second. Okay, so that was a motion to approve the minutes of June 15th, 2020. All right, any discussion? No, perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, perfect, excellent. Other than that, we just need to, decide when we want to meet again. I think we can probably hold off on scheduling our next meeting until we have probably a little bit more clarity with Brian and the selectmen on town meeting. We can kind of see what needs to happen and all of that. And, over the next couple of weeks, we'll have those discussions and then we'll get back and figure out when we need to have our next meeting. But I think we're probably in the clear for a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks at least. So,
Oh,
excellent.
good. Halloween.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
I will entertain a motion to
Sounds
adjourn.
good. Yeah.
Make a motion.
Motion to
I'll
adjourn.
second.
Dave makes the motion, Crystal second. Any discussion? As not, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion is adjourned. Meeting is adjourned at 8:07. All right, everybody.
This
have a
conference
good
is